Disclaimer: this video is of humorous nature only. The author does not seek to insult or humiliate anyone. The video may contain profanity. People under the age of 16 should refrain from watching this video. Story 1. Well, there were a few over the years. One lady, around 70, kept answering the door with an open robe and nothing else on. This one dude was weird and angry and would call up and just start in with, "You ducking idiots, if you can." Ducking, get a ducking order, right one ducking time. I don't think he knew 2 swear words. And we had to tell new people, you can just hang up on him. But from what I heard, when he did get a delivery early on, he was nice and polite at the door. Some weird psychological stuff happening there. The Zeppelin guys were the worst. This weird tall place had to go up 4 stories of rickety stairs, and every damn time they would wait till I was back down and then yell down at me saying we got the order wrong. They were Zeppelin guys because they always had Led Zeppelin playing pretty loud. They wanted me and others to go all the way back up, take the wrong pizza back, and bring a new one and get it for free. This worked a few times. Managers always wanted to give in to it, but then the drivers all sort of briefly unionized on this one point and no one would deliver to them. So the manager finally caved in and told them not to order anymore. Stairway to aggravation, I guess. Stairway 2. Story 3. Story 4. Back in 2021, my wife had to bite the bullet and deliver pizza between jobs. When she'd get home at 1 or 2 a.m., I'd get to hear about these people occasionally. Their no delivery bans were people, gender irrelevant, who opened the door naked repeatedly. Seems to be a common theme for young men and old women. People, mostly men, who would intimate pester for phone numbers or follow back to the driver's car. No tippers who would order like $80 worth of pizza every week and not tip. Edgy teenagers who would fail miserably at prank calls. Their number would get banned for repeatedly calling in pizza for Ivana Humpalot. Parents would later call legitimately wanting pizza just to be told they were banned because their dip-crap child didn't know Bart Simpson had already done every prank name in the book 25 years before the kid was even born. Story 5. This was 7 years ago. Father offered his daughter up for intimate to me on Friday night, then to another driver on Saturday night. Our GM wasn't comfortable with talking to him, so using the internet, I found the wife's name and landline number, called from my cell phone and asked for the wife. She comes on the phone, introduced myself, and explained why I am calling. Never heard from him nor her. Story 6. Years ago, my local Domino's banned a woman who loved to answer the door naked and walk outside to collect the pizza, no matter the weather, while somehow trying to be intimate-y. Apparently, she had an uncanny resemblance to Jabba the Hutt and smelled as bad as you could imagine. They put it as a health risk. They had asked a number of times to stop, but it only egged her on. When a Papa John's opened up locally, they were already aware of her and shut that crap down pretty quick like. Story 7. We didn't ban this customer, but I feel like this story fits. I work for Domino's. I took a delivery to a hotel from an order placed online. So the actual customer put in the wrong address. So I delivered to the room number that she incorrectly put. Anyway, a couple opens the door. They're both stark naked, head to toe, and obviously ducked up. They paid for the order. I guess they thought I was a pizza fairy. IDK. But it was super awkward. So I get back from the delivery, and the actual customer had called back complaining. So we remade the order. We couldn't ban her, and it's kind of hard to ban hotel deliveries. Story 8. Been in pizza 20 years. It's usually a day drinker that assaults the driver and is generally more sad than exciting. I suppose the most exciting was a dude with crafty stairs and second floor. He was also a general dickhead. They wouldn't let us ban him, even though the drivers said it was a safety hazard. He eventually fell through the stairs, piss-drunk 12 feet to the ground, and got banned. It was caught on video from one of those trackball Blackberries, and the video sustained me for a year or two. Story 9. This was before the pandemic, so the memory is a bit hazy, but the story is intact. A guy placed an order for a specific amount, something like exactly $60, and asked my manager if we took checks on delivery. My manager said, "We do." The guy said cool, so the food was made, and I was sent out. I get to the Beat to Hell trailer in the small park, and this super drunk guy hands me a benefits check from the state for the exact amount of the order. I don't think we're supposed to take this even if he endorses it, so I call my manager. He confirms that we can't take it. The guy gives me a story about how it's his only money and the pizza is his only food, and if I take him to the store down the street, he can cash it. So against my better judgment, I put this guy in my car and we go to the store. He gets out and meanders into the store, and after a couple minutes walks out with a pack of cigarettes and a handful of assorted money. Mind you, the check was for the exact amount of his food bill. He tries to hand me what's left over to cover the bill. Okay, you still owe me $12? I had to buy cigarettes. Why the hell did you buy cigarettes? I needed cigarettes. I don't ducking care what you need anymore. I need that money for the food. Take the cigarettes back in the store and get your money back. They won't let me do that. Want to bet? I snatched the cigarettes out of his hand and went into the store as he followed behind. I explained the situation to the guys behind the counter, and they took the cigarettes back and refunded me the money. Now he's cursing at me, but I'm so done, I'm not even listening to him. I go back to my car and hit the unlock and lock keys just fast enough to get my door open and closed again as he tries to open the passenger side door. I'm not giving your ass a ride back after that bullcrap. Duck yourself and use the walk home to reevaluate. He punched my door and I drove off. I got back and told my manager the story, and he told me to go smoke a bowl in the back shed. Relax. I went through the trailer park again on a different delivery. A couple weeks later and his trailer was gone. Story 10. When I moved in with my brother, I ordered Pizza Hut. An hour later, I called to see where they were and told me they do not deliver to this address and had canceled my order. I learned my brother would get drunk, order Pizza Hut, and then pass out or flat out refuse the order when they showed up. He did it multiple times. Story 11. I delivered to a trailer home right on the edge of a neighborhood of literal mansions. When I knocked on the door, this big drunk dude answered. I gave the name and he said to come in. I was a dumb 20-year-old and didn't think anything of it and went just inside the door. Big drunk dude sat down in a rocker in front of a TV watching that night's game. I asked where the guy was, and he yelled down the hall for them. After a moment of them not coming out, he told me they were just around the corner and I just needed to poke my head in to get them. Again, really dumb of me, but I start walking across the living area, and as soon as I get to the hall, this guy comes out of one of the doors yelling at me, asking what the hell I'm doing in his house. I tell him I'm delivering a pizza for so-and-so, and the other dude told me to come down the hall. He starts yelling again at me. At this point, I already decide I'm leaving with the pizza. As I'm walking out, the guy goes down the hall and I hear him grab something and start coming back towards me. As I'm getting in my car, I see him standing in the door of his trailer pointing a shotgun at me and yelling to never come back to his house. So I never did, and no one ever will from that Domino's again. Story 12. I, a college-aged white woman at the time, was delivering to a semi-sketch road in town that no one seemed to really know much about. Poorly lit, smaller, not well-kept homes, it was all a bit off in an otherwise pretty middle-class college town, but I wasn't too worried until I made the delivery to a home of dudes who were absolutely stoned. Okay, no worries. Happens often. But they can't find their money? Then they can't count it. It's taking a while, and they start to notice I'm a female pizza driver. I'm a little nervous, but still fine until a guy pulls up to the house to come inside and says, "Mother Ducker, it's a white girl." I was done. I counted back their change. Pretty sure I gave them more than they were owed and probably my tip and bolted out of there like a scared rabbit. I told my manager, and he took the entire street off the delivery map. It was Twilight Zone sort of stuff because no one else had been there before or even heard of this street. My very first delivery ever was to a guy watching Prawn on a big screen TV, not necessarily common in 2003. It was on pause, but I could still tell. He must have been early into it, though, because he walked to the door in his boxers and it was fine. Somehow I didn't quit that night, Lowell. He didn't even tip well. Story 13. I was a general manager of a pizza joint, won't specify during the pandemic. Due to the contactless delivery protocol, we had these small cardboard boxes that we used as platforms to place pizza boxes on. Mainly, they were meant to keep food off of the ground. Well, this one lady called to complain about the contactless platform boxes, stating that health code indicates a 6-inch minimum between the floor and any food items. This is true. And in my store, nothing. Not even condiments were stored anywhere close to the ground. I'm very particular about health code, but this rule does not extend to food after it's left the store premises. She issued complaints to the website as well, to which she was called back and told of the company's protocol regarding contactless delivery, which was also completely optional at the time. Anyway, I guess she got fed up because she placed a bag of cat crap and litter inside of one of the platforms instead of placing her signed receipt for the driver to receive a tip. I had to ban her from the store because of obvious biohazard concerns. Story 14. Years ago. Free delivery over $5. Guy would order the same pizza $5.34 including tax. Guy would pay the delivery driver exactly $5.34. No tip. It was one thing if we had other deliveries in the area, we'd deliver this guy last. But if that was the only delivery, nope. No one wanted to deliver. It wasn't worth it. I think it finally came to a head when the guy called bitching about where his pizza was, and the manager said, "No one will deliver it because you're such a cheapskate." It was a mom and pop shop, so it wasn't like he could write or call corporate crying about it. Story 15. Back in the 90s, I delivered in a really nice suburb of Chicago. A few days before Christmas, I had a really big order get delivered. Lots of pizza, not enough plain cheese in my opinion. I got a lousy tip. A few days later, I go back, just a single pizza, was asked to deliver to back door. Put pizza down as the dickhead owner told me to. He sounded like an old gangster or something. As I was standing there, he told me to get the hell out and they started shooting at me. Duck that house. I hope that bad crap happened to their family and kids. Story 16. I was a night owl in college and took an evening delivery job for fun. I had a pretty sweet car at the time too, so I thought it would be a great job. One night, I got sent to a less than nice part of town and a man much, much larger than me answered the door. Everything was fine and normal until he looked over me and said, "Nice whip, want it?" I laughed and looked up at him, quickly realizing he wasn't kidding and gestured to a large bulge in his pants. I felt the blood draining from my face until he whipped out what was not a gun but in fact his penis. I bolted back to my car, leaving my warmer bag. Manager banned the house. I left my tip and wasn't interested in which kind he planned to give me. Story 17. This one guy wasn't banned as he never did anything wrong, but I really wish he would have been. When the name popped up on the computer, the other delivery drivers groaned. Since I was the new guy, they assigned the delivery to me, and I was thinking it couldn't be so bad. They told me to hold my breath when I got there, and that this guy is a special case where I need to enter the apartment. Normal policy is to never enter. I get to the apartment building, and as I'm walking to the door, the smell hit me. I'd never smelled anything like it before. Just a pure attack on my nostrils. Urine, feces, and Lord knows what else. I knocked on the door and hear, "Come in, door is unlocked." As I open the door, the smell gets 100x worse, and I feel thick, humid air come from inside. When I set my eyes on the customer, it's a large 400-plus pound man on a recliner. I'm walking over to him and feel my shoes sticking to the floor with every step. He motions to place the pizza, breadsticks, brownie, and Mountain Dew on a small table beside him. He hands me cash, leaving a generous tip, and I walk out, holding my breath and trying not to gag. I always felt bad for that guy. Later on, I found out he orders a few times a week, and I thought to myself, we're partly responsible for this man's condition. So I wish we'd had banned him for his health, but also so we wouldn't subject any other drivers to that. Story 18. We have hotel front desks a sizable discount in return for recommending us and handing out our menus. One hotel took it too far and gave everyone the discount and told them to have it delivered to the front desk. When we complained, they would try to hide it. and have the front desk guys act like it was for them, but we always saw people sitting around the corner. Finally, we ended up refusing to deliver to the front desk at all and took the discount from them. They still tried and still complained every time they called. Every time. Story 19. When I worked as a driver for Domino's in 1988, I put WVU's head basketball coach Gail Catlett on my personal do not deliver to list. He lived about 2 or 3 blocks from the store, and he would write a check for the exact amount of the bill and no tip. That part was fine, just another cheap asshole. But he also had a radio show a couple miles from the store. During the show, we'd give them free pizzas every week, and he'd say something like, "The Domino's just arrived." It wasn't an official endorsement, and I doubt he said it every time. Our district manager, who was one of the biggest assholes I've ever known, was the one that told them to call in for free pizza anytime. Delivering to the radio station at night was a pain in the ass, and he never tipped a penny. So I refused to deliver to him ever again. I tell this anecdote every time there's a pizza delivery thread because I want Gail Catlett's legacy on the internet to include him being a cheapskate asshole. Story 20. Not a pizza delivery driver, but I did work at Papa John's in college, and I got into a fender bender right outside of our store. The person who hit me was probably 5-10 years older than me, and since it happened right outside of my work, my boss, who was cool af sup Ray, came out to help, and the guy who hit me clearly knew where I worked. Anyway, he came in nearly every day for weeks. My boss started sending me into the walk-in and telling this dude to get lost. One day, my manager lost his crap on the guy, and the guy was never to be seen again. Anyway, I learned very quickly that a good boss can make or break a company. I have worked for some really great ones and really crafty ones since then, but now I own a couple of my own companies and only hope to be a good one. I got a text from one of my employees yesterday that made me think I am doing right by the people who taught me the way. You don't necessarily think you are leaving an impression on the people who work for you, but you are. Story 21. Cape Town, South Africa, 1998. Had an address that was impossible to find, seemed to be an abandoned building in a neighborhood that had drug dealers and illegal liquor stores alongside regular houses. I stopped my car and got out to ask a resident at a nearby house if he knew where the place was. He informed me that it was a scam the local gang members ran to rob delivery guys of their cash. My boss then blacklisted the entire neighborhood for delivery. It was on the edge of our viable delivery area anyway. Story 22. I used to work for Little Caesars as an assistant manager. We didn't offer delivery, but made exceptions for large orders by businesses, schools, and churches. About 12 years ago, I had an idea to make some sales on Black Friday. I was trying hard to impress the GM and owner at that time. I went to the mall down the road and spoke to every store and kiosk. Even went to a few other stores nearby too. I told them that we'd be offering delivery to all mall stores regardless of the size of the orders. No fees or extra charges applied. Tips not required. I was the only one making deliveries because I had no clue how busy it'd be. About 4 or 5 stores placed orders in advance. It ended up being very successful, and we had some large orders from the big department stores. My managers were impressed. We had 2 separate orders for Hobby Lobby, one in the morning and the other in the afternoon. The first time delivering to them, they asked me to bring everything to their break room. The break room was in the very back of the store and up a flight of stairs. I had to make 3 trips because they ordered 20 pizzas and 2 crates of 2 liters. They tried to shortchange me and argued that the price of 2 lighters were higher than usual. The same thing happened in the afternoon. Same order, same 3 trips to the back and up the stairs, and arguing over price. No tip either time. I didn't get a tip from every store, and that didn't bother me. But I expect you to tip if you expect me to make 3 long trips like that. I did the Black Friday deliveries the following 2 years, and they were successful, but I refused to deliver to Hobby Lobby. Story 23. This was like 25 years ago, but we had a regular that clearly had some mental issues. He never tipped. You could see the stack of 30-plus old pizza boxes in his kitchen when you delivered. But the night he paid me with a can of coins that was somehow crusted rusted together, and we had to rinse them off and then spend 20 minutes figuring out if it actually covered his bill was the last straw. And before anyone asks, yes, when he handed me the can, I tried to point out that didn't count as payment, but after a minute or two of arguing, it was clear it was either the coins or nothing, and I was willing to lose money on the delivery over staying there any longer. Story 24. There was this older lady we would deliver to. It was a 50-50 crapshoot on if she would tip $75 or not answer the door at all. After enough of her not answering the door, she got banned. Every time I delivered to her was a no answer. My coworker got 2 consecutive deliveries with the $75 tip. Bastard. Story 25. I delivered pizzas for like 3 years, and I don't remember anyone being banned. There was this one guy, though, who called and claimed to have a coupon that wasn't in our system, which isn't too unusual, and I'd normally find a coupon that is the same price or slightly cheaper, and give them that, because we didn't collect nor care if you actually had the coupon. Even when I got calls and customers didn't have one, I'd give them one, because the regular prices were outlandish. I believe this is so it's easier to throw out buy one, get one free coupons. Anyways, this guy claims up and down to have this deep discount coupon that none of us ever heard of, but whatever, if you have it, we'll take it. But we wanted to see the coupon this time. I asked to take the pies because I like these sorts of situations, and I get there and he's ready with a check. This was in like 2002, and I ask for the coupon. Him and his wife start looking for it, and I tell him, no coupon, no pizza. They look a little more, try to convince me to give them the pies, but I say no, and he slams the door in my face. The area we delivered had a wide variety of economic classes from super rich to super poor, and if it had been someone in a poorer area that was just trying to save a few bucks, I would have given them the pizzas no problem. The corp can take the hit. But this was a nice house, and this asshole was just trying to pull some lame scam. Makes me wonder if his check would have even gone through. We put a note in his account that he's an asshole scammer. I wonder if it's still there. One of my faves, though, is we had an older couple who were regulars, and they would get the same order every Sunday night and pick it up. They were the sweetest folks. So once during the holidays, they call in, and I recognized who it was, and didn't put it in the system, and made the pie to give them for free. Lo and behold, they come in with C's candy for us, and I hand them their pizza and say, no charge. We were both so thankful to each other. It was a very sweet moment that sticks with me to this day. It's nice to be nice to people, and it's even nicer to be nice to nice people. Story 26. There was that one time I was told we blacklisted an entire apartment complex. It happened on my day off, and literally as soon as I had said hello to my coworkers, the morning manager, I was night manager, told me, we're not delivering to apartment complex anymore. Someone had called in a delivery there. Couple pizzas and 2 liters, nothing outrageous. Our drivers were familiar with the area, and they knew that it was a little bit on the sketchy side, but we'd never had a problem there, so it was no big deal. He showed up and rang the doorbell, but no one came. He knocked a couple times, confused as duck, and then got hit in the back of the head by a baseball bat and knocked out. A neighbor heard the commotion and came out to check what was going on. She found him bleeding from the head, knocked out on the floor. After getting him to come to, she called the police. He went to the hospital, and the police eventually found the people who did it. It was a bunch of kids who called in a delivery to a vacant apartment. When he showed up, they beat him over the back of the head and stole the food. We know this because they were caught later trying to run. The most ducked up thing? He had a driver bag with about $120 in it. They didn't bother to take it. They literally assaulted this guy just to get free food. From that point on, there were no more deliveries to that apartment complex for any reason. Period. What's worse is that I had regulars calling in who were extremely pissed, and they just seemed to not give a duck even after I told them, hey, someone got assaulted with a weapon there. Felt zero guilt at that point. I also told my drivers to take their magnetic signs off their cars when going to places we knew were a little sketchy. My boss tried to bitch about it, and I flat out told him that I didn't really give a crap about his marketing when it came to safety. Edit. The driver was okay. He was a bit concussed for a while, but he eventually returned to work for a little bit before quitting. I don't remember exactly how things worked out, but I think he got some kind of insurance payout. It's been with 13-14 years, so the details are fuzzy. Story 27. She kept answering the door topless. She would order the same pizza every Friday night and request our youngest male driver. She was never taken seriously and would get whichever driver was up next. It didn't matter, she would still answer the door topless and immediately go sit on her couch without accepting the pizza and begin playing her guitar. She would ask the driver to come in and place the pizza on the counter and pick up the cash off of her stove before making an intimate advance. After the fourth time, I had no choice as the manager. I had to ban her from ordering delivery. Story 28. We had a guy and two girls order separately, then grab the pizzas and run. The girls had picked the food up and left while the guy was paying. After 30 seconds, the guy bolted. It was a $100 order. My manager, who is a frequent gym goer, leapt the counter and gave chase. The two girls had gotten into a car with the food, but when they saw my manager, they drove off, leaving the guy. My manager chased him 3 blocks and was gaining on the guy when the girls pulled up and the guy got into the car. Unfortunately, all 3 of them went to school with a kitchen hand at the store, so we had names, jobs, addresses, and Facebook accounts. We contacted them all on Facebook and got them to pay for the pizzas the next morning under threat of contacting police. We also put them on the no delivery list. Story 29. I've got a couple. There was a house in my old delivery area that had 3 or 4 generations living there. Giant Hispanic family. 2 of the kids apparently liked to play parks, and they prank-ordered pizza to their house. Never said the kids were brilliant. I go to deliver the pizza, and the kids answer first and gleefully tell me to get FDE and slam the door. I knock again, and their grandmother answers. I show the delivery step with the kid's name and address, and she turns around and starts screaming in Spanish at the kids and works a sandal against them like a practiced samurai. I did end up getting paid with a healthy tip and got a fairly entertaining show, so we didn't end up banning them. But that story sticks with me. The person we did ban wasn't actually a delivery. It was during a shift that I was running at the time. A guy pulls up to the pizzeria I was working at like a bat out of hell in a giant Hummer. He's all twitchy and does the cocaine tap dance while eating his pizza. The final straw came when he took a device out of his pocket, stuck his head completely in a trash can, and took the loudest snort of drugs and trash essence you've ever heard. I tell him he has to go. He tells me no. I tell him to go or I call the police and he tells me, do it pie. I still can't believe the cop let him walk away after pulling up when the guy was driving. But I guess positions of status have their privileges. At least the cop didn't let him keep driving. Anyway, he came back looking to fight me the next day, and we trespassed him and banned him from ever ordering from the entire nationwide chain, along with his wife and kids, since he used their accounts to further abuse company systems. Story 30. We had this family that lived in a trailer park. My first encounter with them on the phone went basically the wife trying to add a bunch sides and sauce cups. Then, when I finished taking her order and told her the updated price, she was like, "Sir, you keep those sauce cups on there, but don't charge me for them." Okay, whatever, so I don't add her sides the order. I do the delivery, she doesn't tip. Then she calls up this store in a rage saying, I didn't give her what she paid for. I get into this big 1-hour argument with a manager in charge because he wants me to go and drop off her sides. This woman's a bitch, and I never want to see her again. Manager relents. My second encounter, she places an order. Has her husband call 3 hours later saying their pizza was still doughy in the middle and they had to put it in the oven to get it more done. Wants me to drive all the way back to his trailer and give him a refund personally. I tell him if that were my pizza, I would have called immediately. I just say to him, I know you're lying, duck off. He goes on this tirade about how he's going to shoot me and have me fired and all this and that. I just tell him I have more than one brain cell. They pretty much got themselves banned from the store. There's a few others, but that's the one that's off the top of my head. Story 31. Once had a guy count his cash out in front of me, did it quickly, but I saw the numbers and just grabbed the cash and left because it was the end of the night and I was ready to go home. Got back to the store, and it was easy to notice that several of the large bills were fake, like not even close to looking like real money. And since it was the last delivery of the night, I knew exactly who gave me that money, his phone number and his address. What an absolute idiot. My boss was a good dude who gave the guy the chance to bring real money and apologize without getting the cops involved, but he definitely got banned. Had another situation with a couple who I am guessing worked as prawn stars. Woman was totally fake. Tits, lips, everything. And the man was a ripped macho dude. Delivered to them several times, and on one of the deliveries, she had the man step outside to get the wallet from the car, and when I turned around again, she was completely naked. I kind of just gave off a shocked Pikachu face and enjoyed the view for a bit. The man came back in, she closed her robe, he paid, and I left. Something about the whole situation felt intentional, and I feel like if I would have showed more interest that I could have wound up on Pornhub. Maybe that's my imagination. They didn't get banned, but it certainly was an experience. It wasn't uncommon to walk home with several ounces of really good weed on those shifts. Our pizza shop was in Northern California. Obviously no bans there, and we would all smoke out fat at the end of the shift. I worked for that shop for 2 years. Little did I know that those would hold some of the fondest memories of my life so far. Story 32. Finally, something I can answer. Somebody ordered like 5 pizzas, a bunch of drinks, bunch of sides, easily over $200 to a seedy motel. Turns out it was a stolen credit card. I had only known because the person who the card got stolen from had followed me to the door of the order. I think he got a notification or something on his phone that the big pizza order came from his recently stolen card. He then appeared from behind me and accused the shady guy and girlfriend who opened the door of stealing his credit card. Shady guy then pulled a knife. The cops elected not to show up, by the way. Most of the crafty ones I go to do not end up on the blacklist because money. I've been to a couple that were less crazy and more, unfortunately, common in today's world. A couple of houses that seemed sketchy. Drugs, possible child abuse. I went to a very obvious puppy mill. Lots of dog crap all over the house floors. I did go to one guy who claimed he had already paid when he clearly did not. Receipt and the phone app both showed it as a cash order. He then tried to yoink it out of my hands, and when he missed, he started crying and called me a real self-gratification idiot. Funny guy. He got banned. Story 33. There was a woman who would order extra thin crust and wanted it boxed with a piece of parchment paper under the pizza. I delivered it and knocked on her door. Right next to her front door was a giant picture window through which I could see her sitting at the table on the telephone. I knocked a second time while making eye contact with her, but she didn't even twitch, so I walked back toward my car. She rushed to the door and screamed after me that I was stealing her pizza. I told her straight face, "Oh, I didn't think anyone was home," and then she screeched about making eye contact with me. Anyway, I didn't feel like finishing the delivery just to get no tip, so I kept going to my car and she said she was going to call the cops. Not even a block away, I saw a cop on the side of the road, so I knocked on his car window and told him what was up with that crazy lady to get ahead of any potential problem. He asked, "The house with the green shutters?" I tell him, "Yeah." And then he tells me that 911 has her phone number blocked. So does the fire department and the garbage company, which is why she wanted the parchment under the pizzas because she had months of boxes stacked up and didn't want them grease-covered. She was blacklisted after that. Story 34. My house was put on a no-delivery list once. My older brother, now deceased, was mentally handicapped. He would order pizza from a place in our hometown. We lived about 5 miles out in the country. My brother always paid in cash to the penny. He never tipped. I don't think he could EVR grasp the concept of giving extra money to the driver after having to pay the extra buck delivery charge they tacked on to each order. Dude ordered a pizza at least 3 times a week. One day, I heard him getting upset with someone on the phone and wouldn't tell me what the issue was. A couple days later, we get a call from the manager of the pizza shop aggressively complaining to me that my brother had ordered another pizza and was told they refused to deliver it. He said there was a pizza for him at the shop waiting for someone to come pick up. I told him I didn't understand what was going on and that my brother always orders a pizza from them for delivery. He went on and on about how none of the drivers want to deliver to him with no tip, and that if someone didn't come pick up this pizza, it would be wasted and thrown out, and he would ban our household from the shop. He was well aware that my brother was handicapped and couldn't drive at all. Now, I am like 15 at the time and do not have a driver's license, so I couldn't come get it for him. But I did just happen to know the owner of the store. I got a hold of him and explained what happened. I offered to bring $50 to the store of my own money to dispense out as tips for future deliveries. The owner loved that I offered to do that. He told me to keep my money and he would take care of it. My brother never had another problem getting pizza delivered without a tip ever again. Story 35. We had a regular who was only home maybe 1 out of every 10 deliveries. When he wasn't home, his instructions were to enter his unlocked home and place the pizza on the bar in his basement. He would encourage the drivers to help themselves to anything in the bar. I told my boss I didn't want to end up chained to a radiator or blasted away by cops thinking I was breaking into the place. Huge duckin' creep. Story 36. Relatively tame compared to the rest of these. Obligatory not the delivery driver myself, but I worked at a mom-and-pop pizza place in the late 90s before I had my own driver's license. After one delivery, the mom half of the owners comes storming in, practically drenched from head to toe. Apparently, after she knocked a couple kids open the door and pelted her with water balloons. Immediate ban from delivery. Funny thing is, a couple weeks later, I take a call from the banned number address and inform them that we weren't taking deliveries from the address. Guy asks why. He's never even called us before, and they're only a couple miles from us, so can't be out of range. I tell him about the water balloons, and after a moment of silence, he just quietly says, "I see. Thanks. I'll take care of it." I expect a couple kids came to regret their prank that evening. Story 37. I didn't end up on the no delivery list, but a delivery driver ended up calling in a welfare check on my kid. We live in a relatively small town. This was when COVID was still going on. So much things weren't open, except pizza delivery. I had just gotten off work and my oldest kid was hungry and wanted a pizza. He has ARFID, so I was thrilled he was actually asking to eat something. So I tossed him my phone and told him to order whatever he wanted from Papa John's. 30 minutes later, it still wasn't there, so I hopped in the shower. My son was 11 and opened the door, gave him the money, and took the pizza. The driver said, "Have a good night," and he told the driver to do the same. My son is very tiny for his age. So the driver thought he appeared to be home alone and very young and called the non-emergency dispatch line. Another 30 minutes later, the police showed up. I wasn't upset at all. I explained the situation. I was thankful the driver had called because you just never know and can honestly never be too safe. I thanked the officer for checking up on the call. He had to speak with my son just to make sure he was safe. It all worked out. Story 38. We had this one family. They were Mormon and tipped us with pictures of Jesus towering over the indigenous all the time. Their daughter orders, she's around the age of 16. Pizza box label gets mixed up. We try to switch it back, but it falls off. So there's 2 pizzas, one has no label on the box. The 16-year-old girl calls up to get a refund because one of the pizzas had no label on the box. I tell her no. Asks if she can get credit. Again, no. Then her mom calls. Manager handles her. Manager, again, says no. For some reason, the mother of this girl calls constantly to complain about what happened for about 4 days straight. Eventually, she gets told by the general manager, "If you call this place again, we are involving the police. Leave us alone." This is harassment. I can't get over what a bitch people can be sometimes. My goodness. Story 39. Not me, but a fam member was a cop. Got a welfare check to a property from family across the country. They rock up and there's delivery food. Curry and rice piled at the door. No answer, they go in. Inside, it's all normal except for the stank. Everywhere. Thick in the air. They find the tenant dead in the armchair chair, wasted away, thin as could be. No sign of struggles or anything. They and the other cops search the house. Cupboards and closets full of unopened food containers, full of rotting and gross food. Hundreds of them. The person had prepaid months' worth of food with tip for each meal from several places of each night of the week. As instructed, left the food at the door, knocked, and left. My fam member called the places and asked what the hell? Since it was only once or twice a week, none of them thought it was too off, and occasionally the food would pile up for a few days and then be cleared so it didn't make any alarm bells go off. They got in contact with the deceased's family. Turns out the person who had died had a massive eating disorder and the family carer had died. So the agreement with the rest of the family was that the person would show recipes and meal trays of the food they were eating and send via text. At some point, the deceased realized they didn't have to actually eat the food and just send the photos, hence the single deliveries. Story 40. Years ago, I worked with this Hispanic guy and we are still good friends. He delivered to this house and they claimed something in the order was missing. So I was the next one back at the store, so I ran it to them. They called him a little wetback. I told them, guys, you just blew it, and told them not to order because we won't be back. They was pissed, and one started following me to my car but was falling down drunk. I was ready for them to try something, plus I had my gun. So long story short, Pizza Hut put a 5-year ban on their names and address. Story 41. Delivery to an empty lot with an RV trailer beside a giant house down a long driveway. Kid comes out of the trailer, says to give him the food and go next door for food. I say, no, money first then food. Then we go next door and ring the bell. No answer. Try the detached shop at the end of the driveway with no lights on. Try the bell again. No answer. Finally, call the store to see if I can just give him the food, and the obviously just woken up 60-plus homeowner come out. I say, your son said you'd pay for this. To which he said, that's not my son? That's not my son. Like a horror movie. I quickly apologize and tell the kid to duck off, and tell the homeowner to call the cops if he sees the kid again. The kid said, I just hungry, you were supposed to give it to me first, before slowly walking up the driveway, in my way, begging me to run him over. His number was banned, and I got to close because it took so ducking long, and the closer was a ejaculator cum, semen bag who ducked off at the first chance. Story 42. When I was in high school, I had a family order about $40 worth of food. I show up and she gives me a $20. Then she said, I must have dropped the other one. When I said that she did not, she asked me what would I do if I only got $20. I told her that I guess she'd only get half the food. Then she threatened to call the manager and tell them I took the $20. It was my family's restaurant. I told her to go ahead and call my dad and that I would wait. She scowled and gave me the money. I told her not to call back. Story 43. My friend was delivery driver for Domino's for a few years, and she said some guy was put on the list a few times BC. He'd order under different names from either his house, his mother's, and I think he was already kind of old, or his brother's, and he would accidentally answer the door in a towel and drop it. He was some old perv. She also said a guy threatened to kill the manager after calling BC. He ordered a gluten-free pizza. This was before gluten-free crust was offered. So they set him sauce, cheese, and toppings on a sheet of foil. She also said people were put on lists all the time for wanting the delivery driver to meet them somewhere on the street. And she said it was BC that usually meant a plan to jump and rob the delivery driver. My favorite story about her working there is she was robbed at gunpoint, and when they get robbed, they have to offer the robber a pizza BC. It takes 10 minutes for the safe to open and 10 minutes to cook a pizza. And then she couldn't even leave work after BC, they were short-staffed. Story 44. We had a spot a few miles out of our delivery area. Big sports stuff sometimes we were the only place around. They stiffed on a 100 pizza order, so we never went back. As a driver, I'll go outside the zone if I know it's not sketchy and worth it. And 100 pizzas means I'm in the kitchen making sure those roll out perfectly. Maybe even doing 2 runs to keep them fresh. Pulled into a guy's house, said, "Hey doggies," when I got out, "Oh, they bite." They were running around free. He lost delivery. One place robbed 2 of our drivers over a couple years. Small apartment or townhome thing. We'd flagged the Unit A, but not Unit C, so they got another eventually. Blacklisted that address entirely. One dude had a gate that was always busted or the code never worked. Never answered his phone if we even got service. Just people, man. Story 45. My then BF worked at a pretty chill local place for a few years. It was usually a 3-strike, you're banned kind of pie joint BC. They weren't in the best neighborhood, but they banned a whole street once. BF had stopped at a stop sign, and this guy comes up to his car, asks him what he's doing, and then, in the middle of the delivering a pizza answer, the guy reaches into the car window and punches BF in the jaw. The guy wasn't even from the house ordering the pie, but a random guy in the neighborhood. Anyway, punch must not have hurt BCBF actually. Continues down the street to the actual delivery address. They started shooting out the house window when his car pulled up. Customer called the delivery line later to explain. He had gotten blitzed out of his mind, forgot he ordered delivery, and thought it was someone coming to rob him. Dude actually asked the shop to send the delivery guy back out thus. The whole street got blacklisted. Story 46. I was a Domino's pizza delivery driver when I lived in San Antonio once for about a year, and there were entire sections of our delivery area that we would not deliver to in the dark. My second day on the job, I got sent out to one of them because I didn't know any better, and the guy who took the call ducked up. This was back when you still called in. It was a rundown motel, and the delivery was in the back. I go back there, and there's no lights or nothing. Just a van sitting in front of the room I'm supposed to be delivering to. I got this really bad feeling, so I didn't get out of my car. I pulled back around front and asked the front desk to call them. She said, "Nobody is staying in that room." I ran back to my car and got the duck out of there. I told my manager, and she went and grabbed the guy who took the call and chewed his ass for sending me there, and then informed me that I should never go there in the dark. Story 47. I delivered to this place that had a huge front yard, probably over 50 meters long. It was pitch dark, no light on at the front of the house, and when I got about halfway into the abyss, the vicious barking began. They had 3 attack dogs. Can't remember the breeds. This was close to 20 years ago. I'm actually very good with dogs. I understand their behavior and how to act in situations like that. I came to a halt and kind of roared at them, deep and guttural. This brought them to a halt as well, but they still surrounded me and continued their angry barking. Finally, the owner comes out and the situation diffuses, but they didn't even apologize. I could picture that situation going so bad in so many ways if the driver panicked and tried to run. First thing I did when I got back to the store was have them blacklisted. Story 48. My sister worked for Domino's in high school, and they banned a guy because he would answer the door with his penis poking out of his pants, but only when it was a female employee delivering. It only took 2 times for them to ban him, because he was old, and they chalked the first one up to maybe him being senile. But 3 male drivers delivered, and no penis, and then a female driver delivered again, and out came the penis. Story 49. Not really crazy, but Karen just downright rude and utterly oblivious. 16 years ago when I was going through uni, I delivered for an upscale Indian restaurant. A $190 order came through. The woman was having an all-girls night and tipped me $2 and then had the gall to say I was late. She lived a 5-minute drive from the place. It was piping hot out of the bag. It had come out of the kitchen 8 minutes prior. I blacklisted her, and none of the other drivers would deliver to her either. She begged the owner of the restaurant for months. He threatened to fire us all at some point over it. Eventually, she came in and promised she would tip at least 5% on every order, The owner was like, "Seriously?" He said tip 20% or keep picking up your orders. She eventually agreed. We'd have been happy with 10% to be honest. But even he got pissed with Karen. Story 50. Not the delivery driver. But when I was in high school, my mom ordered pizza with sides of red sauce and ranch. But as the red sauce came warm and the ranch obviously cold, she requested that they not have them in the same paper bag when delivered. The instructions weren't followed and she lost it on the delivery driver, rushing him aggressively and screaming, legit screaming, about the ranch being warm now, and she specifically told them, etc. The driver was trying to figure out why she was upset, because he brought her both sauces and something about a bag. And us siblings were just wide-eyed watching it all go down. My stepdad had to physically move her back from the driver into the house and told the driver thank you in the calmest voice before closing the door. They're divorced now. Story 51. We had to block a number when I worked at a pizza place because they would call roughly twice a month and ask us to deliver. Only they gave an address 1.5 hours away one way, so 3 hours there and back. Whenever they would call, they would always try to give the bare minimum of the address. We guess, hoping we would already have the driver out with the food when we realized how far it was. Once we finally got them to give us the city and zip code they wanted it to go to, we would explain they are over 1 hour away and outside our delivery area by a lot. They would always try the same thing. Well, we are watching the house for the owner, and they told us they get food from you a couple times a week. This was the only number that ever called from this address, and the day we blocked it, I told them as much. Story 52. We had to put Ben Affleck's house on the no-delivery list because his sejaculate or cum. Semen bag friends never paid, never tipped. They would always say to put it on Ben's tab and racked up thousands, not just with us, but a lot of other places as well. He would eventually pay the tab, but his lame-ass friends got his house blacklisted. This was almost 20 years ago, and I still think about how crafty they were to us. Story 53. No pizza. But I used to deliver Chinese food in high school. This asshole couple that lived like 35 minutes away would order from us even though they had a Chinese restaurant right next to their apartment. Every time I would ring their doorbell, they were always in some bug ducking fight. Dog would be barking at me through the screen door. This would go on for like 10 minutes, me just standing there with their food like an idiot. Occasionally it would be pouring rain, but they didn't give a duck. They would finally sign for the order, never look me in the eye, never say thank you, and I would be lucky to get a 50c tip on the order. My buddy eventually had enough, threw their order on the ground and told them if they ever called our restaurant again, he would crap in their beef and broccoli. Manager banned them after they called to complain. Story 54. Knocked on this lady's door for nearly 10 minutes. She had music blasting inside and was yelling while speaking to someone she had over. She ordered the pizza. Why would you not be prepared to listen for and open the door? When she finally answered, she was butt naked. She paid me, then slammed the door in my face while I was still holding the pizza. I was standing there, flabbergasted from the flashbang of seeing a fully naked woman while delivering pizza on a Monday night. She then opened the door again and screamed, "Stupid bitch, don't try to leave here with my crap," even though she slammed the door as I tried to give her food. No tip, immediately banned. Story 55. We had a lot of orders coming in, and it was just me and one other guy that were running deliveries. Naturally, this meant that we were running behind schedule. Had a delivery for a bunch of frat guys, and not only was I late by like 20-30 minutes, my boss had also messed up one of the orders, so I was carrying one wrong order. I had walked up the staircase and basically was inside the house at the time. At their request, I don't come in unless I am asked to. And they verbally harassed me and kicked me out under the threat of force. Naturally, they didn't pay for their delivery either. I understand you're upset about the fact I am late and that the one that packed the delivery had made a mistake, but that was just ducking uncalled for. Story 56. I had a guy that would constantly complain that his order was wrong, even though we knew it was right. He literally wouldn't even check the food. One day, I took his order, shrimp parm sub. He was very adamant that we get it right. I check everything myself, make sure it all correct, and send it out. He calls up in a blind rage, throwing every curse word at me as I'm trying to calm him down. I say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, sir, just check the sandwich, I promise it's correct." And mid-scream he say, "Oh, yeah, it's right. My bad." I then told him to never call back because that response was completely unacceptable. Not a crazy story, but if you heard how this guy was screaming at me, you'd think he'd need to be hospitalized. Story 57. Many moons ago in the early 200s, my dad delivered pizza. On the team was one older guy, slightly frail with white hair, so everyone called him Granddad. He went on a delivery one night and didn't return, so the boys went looking. Found him outside the house bleeding. They had waited for him in the bushes, hit him with a cricket bat and taken the pizza. They picked the wrong guy. All those pizza delivery guys exacted a revenge that I cannot talk about. The police were not involved, and Granddad recovered in hospital, returning sometime later. That house was on the no-delivery list for years. Story 58. Years ago, before Austin became the Texas Disneyland it is now, and was actually an affordable, cool place to live, worked Papa John's. There was a stretch on Live Oak in South Austin where delivery drivers were stabbed, robbed often, and if call came from there, we declined it. The craziest delivery I had was on Mary Street, for the tiny amount of people that might even know what I'm talking about. Chicken foot on door, lady barefoot in all white dress, two guys pacing in background of empty house with bottle of liquor sitting on floor. Paid in change she dumped in my shirt. Not really scary, but weird as hell. And also Austin in like 1998. Story 59. I can't remember someone getting a no delivery. There was an apartment nearby which was used for intimate workers. I delivered there a few times, and one time a ladyboy opened the door, only wearing a slip. She was very friendly and said I could visit again after work. I didn't. We also had a regular who would call 57 days a week, 2 minutes before closing, and ordered the exact same pizza. He never tipped. The pizza was like 8.75 hours or STH, and didn't speak a lot. He hit 1,000 orders while I worked there. My boss went with a driver for the 1,000 delivery and gave him a Ben & Jerry's. The guy was confused. Story 60. The two most common ones were being naked enough times that it obviously wasn't an accident. Everybody is allowed to duck up once. If you wear less clothes every time somebody comes to the door, we know it's on purpose. And trying to fight the driver, or calling the store and saying they were going to come down and fight everyone. Bro, we'll put you in the pizza oven. Go ahead, we've got a lot of employees and more than one felon. Surprisingly, the guy who looked like the serial killer from Silence of the Lambs was really polite. He wore all his mom's old jewelry and clothes because he was possessed by her ghost or something. Either way, real nice and always tipped. Story 61. We had a series of mystery arsons happening in town. Several businesses were heavily damaged, if I recall. One might have even burned completely down. Turned out it was one of our regular customers. He was memorable because they always insisted we not use the roller that prevents bubbles in the pizza. It was a huge deal to the dude. Sometimes they wouldn't form even without the roller, and if it didn't have enough bubbles, he'd call and bitch. Pretty sure the guy went to prison, but the owner said, whether he was around or not, we weren't delivering to them anymore. Story 62. Guy's yard was full of trash and rusty metal. The entire property constantly reeked of cat piss, and he would answer the door either naked or in dirty underwear. We had both men and women driving. He got pawned off onto the men and then outright banned shortly afterwards. He lived in the middle of nowhere, but part of our business model was that we would travel up to 15 miles for a normal delivery, and pretty much anywhere for huge orders. So being the only place in my already modestly sized rural town that delivered to the sticks, we often interacted with some interesting characters. Story 63. Not me, but my boyfriend used to work for a sandwich place doing delivery in our town. And there was a guy they only wanted to send male drivers to because of how creepy he was to the women drivers. The only reason he wasn't banned was because he tipped the women extremely well. So no one made an official complaint because of it. Pretty sure that guy got banned a little bit later when my BF stopped working there, because there's a review on their Google page from him complaining about it. Story 64. Remember that commercial where the guys walk into a pizza place, order a pizza for delivery, and ride home with the driver? Well, we had that going on in my hometown. I was 15 at the time and never did it, but we had a few regulars who would leave the bar across the street and do this mostly friendly. We had this one super drunk guy one time, and before leaving the parking lot, projectile vomited all over this car. Multiple pizzas ruined. Car smelled like bad cheese and beer for weeks. Manager was like, no more, no delivery unless they call. Story 65. On the flip side of this, I was banned from ordering from my local pizza chain because they thought I had been photocopying some of their free pizza coupons. But really, I worked for our college's sports marketing department, and they paid me in the extra pizza vouchers they got as part of the school's sponsorship deal with the pizza chain. I ended up just asking my friends to order for me and deliver to their dorms instead, and we'd all just share the pizza. Story 66. Just imagining the manager ranting when he got back to the store. I ducking chased him for 3 blocks. 3 blocks, and I nearly had him and the bloody girls drove up and picked him up. I nearly had him, and they got away. Kitchen hand. Oh, I know them. Here's their Facebook. Kitchen hand becomes kitchen hero, while manager sits in corner recovering his breath and glaring. Story 67. Pizza place I used to work at banned an entire shady motel at one point. Multiple female drivers were followed to their cars or had nasty things said to them. I personally had a woman give me money from her sock to pay for the pizza. That same woman gave money from her underwear to another driver, and one of the drivers walked by an active crime scene complete with blood all over the walls during a delivery. Just a lovely place. Story 68. Not a delivery driver, but I used to work somewhere that only one pizza place would deliver to. 2 of the guys I worked with decided to prank call them and give them some inappropriate name. I don't remember what it was, and they wouldn't deliver to us anymore. Needless to say, those 2 were not very liked by everyone else for a while. Story 69. We had this guy who was a total terror. He would yell and scream and made some of the younger girls cry. Always had a problem. So finally the owner told him he was banned. He showed up a couple times begging to be a customer again, and the owner said, "No, you made employees cry." No. Cut to several years later. I'm at a family wedding, and he is the minister conducting the ceremony. He was a freaking minister. Story 70. I was invited in an apartment while it was pouring where a dude was just in a t-shirt and underwear. I was obviously not the delivery driver he was looking for as he looked me up and down. He was obviously very gay and looks like he was hoping for a male driver. In hindsight, I shouldn't have entered the apartment, but there was no overhang, and I was drenched. Story 71. When I worked at a pizza place, we just had one person that we wouldn't deliver to because he would always refuse to pay and hassle the delivery guy, saying the pizza was cold, took too long, wasn't the right order, whatever. He probably got a couple free pizzas at least before we stopped bothering sending him anymore. Thank you all for watching. Watch even more great stories on my channel.